Years later, Arjun stood in front of a modest but welcoming building, its walls painted a soft blue and adorned with colorful murals of smiling children holding hands. Above the entrance hung a wooden sign that read, "Hope Clinic, free healthcare for all." The clinic was finally complete, a dream years in the making, and today marked its grand opening. Villagers gathered outside, their faces filled with curiosity and gratitude. For many, this was the first time they'd ever had access to proper medical care. Inside, the clinic buzzed with activity. Volunteers guided patients to waiting areas, while nurses prepared examination rooms. Priya, now a trained nurse, moved briskly between tasks, her cheerful demeanor putting nervous visitors at ease. She glanced over at Arjun, who stood near the doorway greeting everyone warmly. "You did it, Beta," she said, beaming. "This is everything you dreamed of." Arjun smiled, though his eyes glistened with emotion. "We did it, Priya. Together." As the day unfolded, stories poured in from people whose lives were already being transformed. A mother tearfully thanked Arjun after he treated her son's persistent fever, something she couldn't afford to do before. An elderly man hobbled in with a painful limp. Within hours, Arjun had fitted him with crutches and prescribed medication to ease his discomfort. Each patient brought new challenges, but also reminders of why Arjun had fought so hard to make this happen. Later that afternoon, Vikram arrived, carrying a bouquet of flowers and a proud smile. He embraced Arjun tightly, then turned to admire the clinic. "It's perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've created something truly special here." Arjun shook his head humbly. "I didn't do this alone. You believed in me when no one else did. And Priya, she's been my partner every step of the way." Priya chimed in, grinning mischievously. "Don't forget, I'm the brains behind this operation." They laughed together, the sound echoing through the clinic like music. It was a moment of pure joy, one that reflected how far they'd come since that fateful day in the marketplace. That evening, as the crowd thinned and the sun dipped below the horizon, Arjun walked outside to take in the scene. Children played near the mural, laughing and chasing each other, while adults chatted happily under the shade of nearby trees. The air felt lighter somehow, as if hope itself radiated from the ground beneath their feet. Standing beside him, Priya sighed contentedly. "Remember when we thought happiness was just having enough food for the day? Look at us now." Arjun nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "And look at them," he added, gesturing toward the villagers. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about them. About giving people a chance to live without fear." Vikram joined them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "What you've built here will change lives for generations. This clinic is more than medicine. It's proof that kindness can heal wounds deeper than any illness." As darkness fell, the three of them stood together under the stars, surrounded by the hum of life and laughter. Arjun thought back to the boy he once was, the desperate child begging the stranger to save his sister, and marveled at how love, courage, and compassion had carried him through. His journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every struggle. In that moment, standing beside the people who mattered most, Arjun realized something profound. Hope wasn't something you waited for, it was something you created. And together, they had done exactly that. Years passed, and Arjun's hard work finally paid off. The day he graduated from medical school was one of the proudest moments of his life. Standing on stage in his crisp white coat, clutching his diploma, he felt a wave of emotions crash over him. Gratitude, relief, and an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. As the audience erupted into applause, his eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on two familiar faces: Vikram, who stood beaming with pride, and Priya, whose cheeks were wet with tears of joy. After the ceremony, Arjun hugged them both tightly, unable to find words to express what this moment meant. "Thank you," he whispered to Vikram, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything." Vikram smiled, patting him on the back. "You did this, Arjun. All I did was show up. The rest was all you. Priya chimed in, grinning through her tears. Now you're officially my doctor brother. Does that mean I get free checkups? Her playful comment lightened the mood, and they laughed together. A sound so different from the cries of hunger and despair that had once defined their lives. For the first time in years, Arjun allowed himself to feel truly happy. They had come so far, from the dusty streets of their village to this grand hall filled with hope and possibility. But Arjun wasn't content to stop there. His dream wasn't just about becoming a doctor. It was about giving back to those who needed help the most. With Vikram's continued support, he began working at a hospital in the city while saving money to fulfill his ultimate goal, opening a free clinic in his hometown. He spent weekends traveling back to the village, conducting health camps, and treating patients who couldn't afford medical care. Word spread quickly, and soon, people from neighboring areas started showing up, seeking his help. Priya, inspired by her brother's dedication, decided to follow in his footsteps. She enrolled in nursing school, determined to join him in his mission. "I'll be your right hand," she joked during one of her visits, "or maybe your left foot. I'm not picky." Her decision brought immense pride to Arjun. It felt like their bond had come full circle. They had started as two lost children clinging to each other for survival, and now they were building something meaningful together. Their shared purpose strengthened their relationship even further, filling their days with laughter, teamwork, and mutual admiration. Vikram remained a constant presence in their lives, visiting whenever he could. Though he never sought recognition, Arjun made sure to publicly thank him at every opportunity. During one such visit, Arjun handed Vikram a framed photograph of the three of them, taken years ago outside the orphanage. "This is where it all began," Arjun said softly. "Because of you, we're here today. You saved us, not just with food or shelter, but with kindness. I'll never forget that." Vikram blinked back tears, shaking his head. "No, Arjun. You saved yourselves. Your strength, your love for Priya. It's what kept you going. I just happened to be there." As time went on, Arjun's reputation grew. People admired not only his skills as a doctor, but also his compassion. He treated everyone with respect, regardless of their background, often staying late to ensure no patient was turned away. His clinic became more than a place for healing. It became a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, light could shine through. One evening, as Arjun sat under the same tree where he used to study, he reflected on how far they'd come. From the desperate boy clutching his starving sister to the man sitting here now, surrounded by gratitude and love, the journey had been long and difficult, but every step had been worth it. He glanced over at Priya, who was reading nearby, and smiled. Together, they had turned pain into purpose, and that was a legacy worth leaving behind. With high school behind him, Arjun faced the next big challenge. Pursuing higher education, he dreamed of becoming a doctor, a goal that felt both thrilling and terrifying. The thought of wearing a white coat and saving lives filled him with purpose, but the road ahead was daunting. Medical school required money, something he didn't have, and sacrifices, something he'd already given so much of. Vikram, however, refused to let doubt creep in. "You've come this far, Arjun," he said one evening as they sat together in the orphanage courtyard. "Don't stop now. I'll help you every step of the way." True to his word, Vikram began researching scholarships, grants, and part-time work opportunities for Arjun. It wasn't easy. There were rejections and setbacks. But slowly, pieces started falling into place. A local charity offered financial aid, and Vikram agreed to cover the rest, ensuring Arjun wouldn't have to worry about fees or books. Arjun threw himself into his studies with relentless determination. During the day, he attended lectures and labs, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. At night, he worked at a nearby cafe, serving customers and cleaning tables to earn extra money. The hours were long, and the exhaustion sometimes left him drained, but he never complained. Every late-night shift, every difficult exam, reminded him why he was doing this. For Priya, for the countless others who had suffered like them, and for the promise he'd made to himself to make a difference. But life wasn't without its trials. In medical school, Arjun encountered classmates from privileged backgrounds who seemed to glide through challenges effortlessly. They wore expensive clothes, drove fancy cars, and spoke casually about internships abroad. Things Arjun could barely imagine. Some treated him differently, assuming he didn't belong in their world. One classmate even remarked, "You're awfully quiet for someone aiming to be a doctor." The comment stung, but instead of letting it bring him down, Arjun used it as fuel. He studied harder, stayed later in the library, and sought guidance from professors who saw potential in him. Slowly, he earned their respect, not through words, but through sheer effort and resilience. By the end of his second year, he was topping his classes, proving to himself and others that where you start doesn't define how far you can go. Through it all, Priya remained his anchor. Now a teenager, she visited him whenever she could, bringing homemade snacks and stories from the orphanage. She loved hearing about his classes and proudly told anyone who would listen that her brother was going to be a doctor. "One day, you'll fix everything wrong with the world," she teased, hugging him tightly. During holidays, Arjun returned to the orphanage, not just to rest, but to give back. He volunteered as a tutor, helping younger children with their studies. Many of them reminded him of himself, shy, uncertain, hungry for a chance to prove themselves. Seeing their faces light up when they solved a problem or grasped a concept filled him with joy. For the first time, he realized that his journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about creating opportunities for others like him. Vikram continued to visit regularly, always arriving with encouraging words and small gifts. On one such visit, he found Arjun poring over thick textbooks under the shade of a tree. Smiling, Vikram handed him a cup of tea. "Still working hard, I see." Arjun grinned, taking a sip. "Always. There's so much to learn." "You'll get there," Vikram said firmly. "And when you do, don't forget where you came from. Use what you've learned to help those who need it most." Those words stuck with Arjun as he looked around at the orphanage, the place that had saved him and Priya. He vowed to honor Vikram's advice. One day, he would open a clinic in his hometown, offering free care to families trapped in poverty. He wanted to be more than a doctor. He wanted to be hope for people who had none. Despite the struggles, Arjun's heart swelled with gratitude. Every obstacle he overcame brought him closer to his dream, and closer to fulfilling the promise he'd made years ago under the scorching sun, to protect Priya, to rise above despair, and to build a better future for both of them. Life at the orphanage quickly fell into a rhythm, but adjusting wasn't easy for Arjun. The days were structured: meals, classes, playtime. And while Priya thrived in this new environment, Arjun struggled to find his place. Sister Margaret and the other caregivers did their best to reassure him, but the weight of responsibility he carried never fully left his shoulders. Every morning, he woke up before dawn, checking on Priya to make sure she was still there, safe and sound. Only then could he breathe a little easier. Priya, on the other hand, embraced her new life with wide-eyed curiosity. She made friends easily, giggling as she played hopscotch or chased butterflies in the courtyard. Her laughter filled the air like music, drawing smiles from everyone around her. Watching her, Arjun felt a mixture of pride and guilt. Pride because she seemed so happy, guilt because he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't his doing. It was the orphanage, the caregivers, and the strangers who had stepped in to help. He often wondered if he'd failed her by not being able to provide all of this himself. School proved to be another challenge. For the first time, Arjun sat in a classroom, surrounded by children his age scribbling answers on paper or raising their hands eagerly during lessons. But learning didn't come naturally to him. Years of malnutrition and stress had left gaps in his knowledge, and he struggled to keep up with subjects like math and science. Some of the older boys teased him, calling him slow or stupid, which only deepened his frustration. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult day at school, Arjun retreated to the courtyard, sitting alone under a tree. Tears pricked his eyes as he replayed the mocking voices in his head. How could he protect Priya if he couldn't even succeed in something as simple as school? Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Vikram appeared, carrying a bag of books and supplies. "Hey," Vikram said gently, sitting beside him. "What's going on?" Arjun hesitated, staring at the ground. Finally, he muttered, "I'm no good at anything. Everyone else is smarter than me." Vikram frowned, leaning closer. "That's not true, Arjun. You've been through more than most people twice your age. It's okay to struggle. You're just starting out. But I believe in you. You have strength, determination, and a heart bigger than anyone I know." His words caught Arjun off guard. No one had ever spoken to him like that before, with such belief and encouragement. Slowly, Vikram pulled out a notebook and pen from his bag. "Here," he said, "let's practice together. Whatever you're struggling with, we'll figure it out." From that day forward, Vikram became Arjun's unofficial tutor. During his visits, they worked through problems, practiced reading aloud, and discussed big dreams. Arjun began to see progress, not leaps and bounds, but small victories that gave him hope. With each passing week, he grew more confident, both in his studies and in himself. Meanwhile, Priya blossomed into a bright, cheerful girl who adored her brother. She followed him everywhere, tugging at his sleeve and chattering endlessly about her day. One evening, as they sat side by side coloring pictures, Priya looked up at him and said, "Bhaiya, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Arjun froze, stunned. Him. She wanted to be like him. For so long, he'd seen himself as inadequate, someone who couldn't protect or provide. But in Priya's eyes, he was her hero, the person who had kept her alive, who loved her unconditionally, who fought for her every single day. That realization changed something inside him. Maybe he wasn't perfect, but he was enough. For her, and for himself. As months turned into years, Arjun found his footing. He excelled in school, earning praise from teachers and admiration from classmates. When he graduated high school at the top of his class, the entire orphanage celebrated. Standing on stage, holding his certificate, Arjun scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on Vikram and Priya. They were clapping the loudest, their faces glowing with pride. In that moment, Arjun knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, Vikram woke early to prepare for the journey to the city. He packed a small bag with essentials, extra clothes, snacks, and bottles of water, and arranged for a car to take them. When he turned to check on Arjun and Priya, he found the boy already awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed with his sister cradled in his lap. Arjun's eyes were wary, scanning the room as if trying to piece together what would happen next. "Are you ready?" Vikram asked gently, kneeling beside him. Arjun hesitated, his fingers tightening around Priya protectively. "Where exactly are we going?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "To a place where you'll both be safe," Vikram replied. "A home for children like you. You'll have food, a bed, and people who will look after you." "But what about us staying together?" Arjun pressed, his gaze unwavering. "You said we wouldn't be separated." Vikram nodded firmly. "I meant it. I'll talk to the people there myself. They'll make sure you stay with your sister." Though Arjun seemed slightly reassured, doubt lingered in his expression. The idea of leaving behind, even a shred of control over Priya's life, terrified him. For so long, he had been her sole protector, the only person she could rely on. Trusting someone else to care for her felt like betraying the promise he'd made to their mother. Still, deep down, he knew they couldn't go back to the way things were before. Hunger and fear had nearly broken them, and he didn't want that life for Priya anymore. As they set off in the car, Arjun kept Priya close, refusing to let anyone else hold her. The ride was long, the roads bumpy, but Priya slept soundly in her brother's arms, lulled by the rhythmic motion. Arjun stared out the window, watching villages blur past and fields stretch endlessly. His mind raced with questions. Would they really take care of them? What if something went wrong? What if Priya got sick again? Each thought weighed heavily on him, but he forced himself to focus on the present, for her sake. When they finally arrived at the orphanage, a large, whitewashed building surrounded by tall trees and colorful flower beds, Arjun felt a mix of awe and unease. Children played in the courtyard, laughing and chasing each other, while women in simple robes walked among them, smiling warmly. It looked peaceful, almost too good to be true. But Arjun remained guarded, his instincts telling him not to trust appearances. Vikram led them inside, introducing them to Sister Margaret, the head of the orphanage. She was a kind-faced woman with gentle eyes and a soothing voice. After hearing their story, she assured Arjun that they would do everything possible to keep him and Priya together. "You're very brave," she told him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "And your sister is lucky to have you." Despite her words, Arjun clung to Priya tightly as they were shown to their new quarters, a small room with 2 beds, a desk, and shelves stocked with books and toys. It was modest but clean, and far better than anything Arjun had ever imagined for them. Still, the unfamiliarity of it all unnerved him. As Sister Margaret left to fetch fresh clothes and supplies, Arjun sat on one of the beds, holding Priya close. "You see, Priya," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "we're safe now. But I'm still here. I won't leave you." Over the next few days, Vikram visited regularly, bringing little gifts, a stuffed animal for Priya, a puzzle book for Arjun, and checking in on how they were adjusting. Slowly, Arjun began to open up, sharing snippets of his fears and dreams. One evening, as they sat together in the courtyard, Arjun confessed, "I promised Mama I'd always protect her. That's why I can't let anyone take her away from me." Vikram smiled softly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You've done an incredible job, Arjun, and no one's taking her away. You're giving her a chance to grow strong, just like you. That's what your mother would have wanted." For the first time in weeks, Arjun felt a flicker of hope, not just for Priya, but for himself. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something better. Vikram led Arjun and Priya through the narrow, winding streets of the village until they reached a modest hotel on the outskirts. The building wasn't grand or luxurious, but it was clean and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the marketplace. Vikram opened the door to his room and gestured for Arjun to step inside. Hesitant at first, Arjun glanced up at him, then slowly entered, his grip on Priya never loosening. The room was simple: a bed, a small table with 2 chairs, and a window that let in streams of golden afternoon light. For Arjun, it felt like stepping into another world, one far removed from the dusty alleys and crumbling huts he had known all his life. Vikram motioned for him to sit on the bed while he filled a glass of water from a jug on the table. "Here," he said, handing it to Arjun. "Let her drink this first." Arjun nodded and carefully tilted the glass to Priya's lips. She sipped tentatively at first, then drank greedily, spilling droplets onto her frail hands. Watching her, Vikram couldn't help but notice how protective Arjun was, how every movement, every gesture, revolved around ensuring Priya's comfort. It was clear that this boy would do anything for his sister, even if it meant sacrificing himself. Once Priya had finished drinking, Vikram brought out some food he bought earlier, a plate of rice, lentils, and soft rhodis wrapped in a cloth. He placed it on the table and encouraged Arjun to eat. "You need strength too," he said gently when Arjun hesitated, trying to prioritize feeding Priya first. But Vikram insisted, dividing the meal between them. For the first time in days, Arjun allowed himself to eat without guilt, though his eyes kept darting toward Priya to make sure she was eating enough. As they ate, Vikram sat across from them, watching silently. When their hunger began to ease, he leaned forward slightly and asked, "What will you do now? Where will you go?" Arjun froze, the question catching him off guard. He hadn't fought beyond surviving each day. After a long pause, he mumbled, "I don't know. I can't leave her." His voice cracked, tears threatening to spill again. "She's all I have left." Vikram sighed deeply, his expression thoughtful. He knew he couldn't simply walk away, not after seeing the depth of Arjun's love and sacrifice. These children needed more than a meal or a night's rest. They needed stability, safety, and a chance to rebuild their lives. But Vikram also knew he couldn't take them with him permanently. He had responsibilities in the city, a job, and commitments that wouldn't allow him to care for 2 children full-time. An idea began to form in his mind. There was an orphanage in the capital, run by kind-hearted nuns who dedicated their lives to helping abandoned and destitute children. It wasn't perfect, but it offered shelter, education, and medical care, things Arjun and Priya desperately needed. Still, telling Arjun about it wouldn't be easy. The boy already carried so much fear and loss. The thought of being separated from his sister might break him completely. That evening, as Priya drifted off to sleep in Arjun's arms, Vikram decided to broach the subject carefully. Sitting beside the boy, he spoke softly. "Arjun, listen to me. I want to help you both, but I can't stay here forever. I have work in the city, and I can't provide the life you and your sister deserve. There's a place, a home for children like you. They'll take good care of you there. You'll have food, clothes, school, everything." Arjun's eyes widened with alarm. "But what about Priya?" he demanded, clutching her closer. "Will we be together?" "Yes," Vikram assured him quickly, sensing the panic rising in the boy's voice. "I promise you won't be separated. I'll make sure of it." Though Arjun didn't fully trust the plan, exhaustion and hunger had taken their toll. He nodded reluctantly, too tired to argue further. As he settled down beside Priya, Vikram watched them, his heart heavy but resolute. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. These children deserved a chance to rise above the hardships that had defined their young lives. And he was determined to give it to them. The man, startled by the sudden plea, turned to face Arjun. His name was Vikram, and though he appeared calm on the outside, his heart clenched at the sight of the boy's tear-streaked face and the fragile child in his arms. For a moment, he simply stared, unsure of what to say. The marketplace bustled around them, vendors shouting prices, children laughing, carts rattling, but everything seemed distant, muffled, as if the world had paused for this one desperate exchange. Vikram knelt down slowly, bringing himself to Arjun's eye level. He noticed how tightly the boy held his sister, as though afraid she might slip away if he loosened his grip even slightly. Priya's head lolled against Arjun's shoulder, her breathing shallow, her tiny body alarmingly light. Her eyes were half closed, but there was a flicker of life still left in them, a faint glimmer that made Vikram's chest ache. "Why are you saying this?" Vikram asked gently, his voice soft enough not to startle the boy. "Why do you want me to take her?" Arjun sniffled, trying to wipe his tears with the back of his hand. But they kept coming. "I can't feed her anymore," he admitted, his voice breaking. "She cries all night because she's hungry. I don't know what else to do. I promised Mama I'd take care of her." But his words trailed off, and he looked down at Priya, guilt and sorrow etched across his young face. "I just want her to live." Vikram felt a lump rise in his throat. He had seen poverty before. He had grown up in it himself. But hearing those words from a child hit him like nothing ever had. This wasn't just hunger. It was despair so deep that it forced an 8-year-old to beg a stranger to save his sister. It was selflessness born out of love, a love so fierce that it broke Vikram's heart. Without another word, Vikram reached into his bag and pulled out a small loaf of bread. He tore off a piece and handed it to Arjun. "Here," he said, "give this to her first." Arjun hesitated, glancing at the bread warily. But when Vikram nodded encouragingly, he accepted it and carefully fed it to Priya. She chewed slowly, her eyes fluttering open wider as the taste of food awakened something inside her. Watching her eat brought both relief and fresh tears to Arjun's eyes. As Priya nibbled on the bread, Vikram studied the boy more closely. Arjun's clothes were torn and patched repeatedly, his feet bare and dusty. There was a weariness about him, a heaviness that no child should carry. Yet beneath the exhaustion, Vikram saw determination, a quiet strength that refused to give up, even when hope seemed lost. "Tell me your story," Vikram said after a while. "Who are you? Where are your parents?" Arjun hesitated again, clutching Priya closer. Talking about his family meant reopening wounds that were still raw. But something in Vikram's tone, the kindness, the patience, made him trust the man. In halting sentences, he explained how their father had fallen ill and died, leaving their mother to work tirelessly in the fields. When she collapsed one day, too weak to get up, the villagers buried her beside her husband. Since then, Arjun had been doing whatever he could to keep Priya alive. "But I'm failing," he whispered bitterly. "Every day, I fail." Vikram listened silently, his jaw tightening as anger and sadness swirled within him. Not at Arjun, but at the circumstances that had reduced a child to such desperation. He couldn't undo the past, but he could change what happened next. Rising to his feet, he extended a hand toward Arjun. "Come with me," he said firmly yet kindly. "Both of you. Let's go somewhere safe for now." For a second, Arjun hesitated. Trust didn't come easily, especially in a world where survival often depended on looking out for yourself. But looking into Vikram's eyes, he saw sincerity, a promise that this man wouldn't hurt them. Slowly, cautiously, he took Vikram's hand, holding Priya close with the other. As they walked away from the noisy marketplace, Arjun allowed himself a sliver of hope, a fragile, flickering belief that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. In a small, dusty village, surrounded by dry, cracked earth and barren hills, an 8-year-old boy named Arjun stood trembling under the scorching sun. His thin arms clutched tightly around his baby sister, Priya, who was only 2 years old. Her tiny face was pale, her lips dry and cracked from days without food. The famine had swept through their village like a cruel storm, leaving families hungry, desperate, and broken. For weeks, Arjun had tried to care for Priya on his own after losing both their parents, first their father to illness, then their mother, who worked herself to exhaustion trying to feed them. Every day was a battle. Arjun scavenged whatever he could find: scraps of stale bread, wilted vegetables discarded by traders, or even leftover grains scattered near the market. But it was never enough. Some nights, Priya cried so hard that her voice grew hoarse, her little body shaking with hunger. Arjun would rock her gently, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. "Don't worry, Priya," he'd say softly. "I'll find something tomorrow. I promise." One afternoon, as the sun blazed overhead, Arjun wandered into the crowded marketplace, hoping against hope to find something edible. The air smelled faintly of spices and cooked rice, but none of it belonged to him. His stomach growled painfully, but he ignored it. He had long learned to push aside his own hunger for Priya's sake. As he walked past stalls filled with colorful fruits and fresh produce, his heart sank. He couldn't afford any of it. Just then, he noticed a man standing near a cart loaded with freshly baked bread. The man wore clean clothes, a crisp white shirt and trousers, and carried a bag slung over his shoulder. Around him, a group of children gathered, holding out their hands as he handed out pieces of bread. Arjun froze, watching the scene unfold. His throat tightened as he looked down at Priya, whose wide eyes stared up at him expectantly. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder, too tired to even cry anymore. Tears welled up in Arjun's eyes as a wave of helplessness washed over him. What could he do? He didn't have money. He didn't have anything to trade. All he had was Priya. and she was starving. Summoning every ounce of courage, Arjun stepped forward, clutching his sister close. His legs felt like they might give way beneath him, but he forced himself to approach the stranger. When he reached the man, he stopped, his voice trembling as he spoke. "Sir, please take my baby sister," he blurted out, tears streaming down his dirty cheeks. "She's hungry. I can't feed her anymore." The words hung heavily in the air, raw and heartbreaking. People nearby turned to look, some with pity, others with indifference. But Arjun didn't care. He just wanted someone to save Priya, to make sure she lived when he no longer could.